Ed Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
Well, in case you haven't realized it, there is an election coming up. I'm just kidding. Everybody knows that, right? You've thought the commercials. Max Berkley, a prominent name. Family's been involved in the community here in southern Nevada and northern, I should say, for about 45, 46 years already. Mother was a congresswoman, a regent, among other things, right?
Yeah.
What's it like to, and you're running for judge, Justice of the Peace. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to ask you, what is it like growing up in a household where both your parents were attorneys, right? Your dad was a lawyer, your mom was an attorney and engaged in Congress. What's that like?
So you had to think about what you wanted to say and how you said it before you opened your mouth, because with both parents attorneys. But in reality, I think it was very similar to how a lot of people grow up. I had two parents who were devoted to my brother and I. Obviously, my mom had to travel for part of the time, when she was in Congress, but she did a great job of balancing all of it. And as far as the way she was treated, among the community, it was flattering. And I love my brother and I think loved the attention, and we knew we were lucky to have some of the opportunities that we did, and lucky to have active parents, and lucky to have parents that were impactful and able to help some people in the community.
So was it like a foregone conclusion that you're going to be an attorney? I mean, was it something that it was fed to you as a child?
So my parents always did a good job of giving my brother and I options, but certainly not trying to push anything. My brother ended up going into hotel management and is now works for Southern Wine and Spirits, mostly selling various products, including alcohol to some of the big casinos and establishments in town. So obviously he veered off a little different way. For me, I think after I got done with college, my parents said, what's your game plan? Do you want to continue with schooling? Do you want to try to find a job? And I said, well, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I think a law school degree would be beneficial to me, and they agreed. So I went to law school here at UNLV, and then ended up deciding to become an attorney like them.
What are when you grew up, like your mom being in Congress, I mean, she obviously had certain values, certain characteristics that she wanted to hand down to you. How are you able to use those in becoming a justice court judge?
So after law school, really during law school, I was faced with the challenge that a lot of attorneys have, or future attorneys are going to have, which is, what type of law do I want to practice? And I thought about the fact that I like being in trial, or I like being in the courtroom, but I also always admired public service and people that were involved with public service. So it just random circumstance, the public defender's office had an opening. I applied. I got hired, and that was a little over 11 years ago, and I've been at the public defender's office ever since. The way that relates to my mom is I think she always pushed the value, pushed the importance of the community, giving back, making sure that everyone, receives a fair and effective representation, and that is why I decided to become a public defender.
Yeah, and you get a lot of courtroom experience. It was my first job also, was in the public defender's office, and I know, look, I mean, you can take a who's who in Nevada, attorney-wise, and trace a great deal of them back to the public defender's office.
Absolutely, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception that the public defender's office, they're the free attorneys, or those are the attorneys that aren't as good, and I think that couldn't be further from the truth. The public defender's office, a lot of the future Supreme Court justices, senators, governors, they started at the public defender's office.
Richard Bryant, Mike Cherry, I mean, just name a couple. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you're really getting more experience than somebody who's not in, whether you're in the DA's office or the public defender's office, you're really developing a lot of trial experience.
100%, and you mentioned it, we're handling, I'm in court 4 days a week. I'm in justice court every week. There's hundreds of cases that all attorneys are handling at the public defender's office. So yes, we get a tremendous amount of courtroom experience.
Elections, it's first Tuesday in November. What is that, November 8th?
Yeah, that's exactly
Second
right.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Why do you want to become a justice of the peace?
So I've been in Justice Court now in Department 7 for the last 3 years. That's the department I appear in front of. And I've been in Justice Court in general once a week for about 11 years. I'm very comfortable in there. I've spent a lot of time at this point. And when Judge Bennett Herron decided she was going to retire, I thought about the fact that this would be a good opportunity. If I was ever interested in trying something new, there would be an opening in Department 7, which is, again, the department that I have appeared in front of for a few years. So I talked to her, let her know I was interested. She was very gracious about it and told me, if it's something I really wanted to do, that I should do it. I talked to my family. Everyone was very supportive. So I decided that I've got the experience at this point, I've got the knowledge, and this is the opportunity. That's why I decided to run for judge.
And what would you hope to accomplish as a justice of the peace?
So I think this first answer is going to be the standard answer, but I think it's accurate, which is I want to be fair to everyone. I want to be respectful. I want to be transparent. I want to make sure everyone's treated with dignity in the courtroom. In addition to that, I also want to expand some of the drug programs in justice court. When someone goes up to district court, they've got Salvation Army, Freedom House. These are different inpatient drug treatment centers. In justice court, there aren't as many utilized. So I've spent much of the last 8 months or so since I've been running learning about Crossroads and Landmark, and I just took a tour of Desert Parkway 2 days ago, and some of the other drug treatment centers that I don't think are being utilized very much that I think can be very beneficial to justice court.
Looking at more at the rehabilitative part of sentencing in that regard, for
Yeah.
drug offenses.
That's right, and I know that's only a part of what I'd be doing, but that is certainly something I'm passionate about, and I want to make sure everyone understands that judges are not involved in negotiating cases, but judges certainly, I think, can give options to both parties, both the district attorney and defense attorney, that instead of doing a one-day counseling class, maybe it would be more beneficial if we start utilizing some of these other programs. So that would be something I would definitely try to expand.
But a judge does do the sentencing, so you could you could require somebody to go to a drug rehab instead of giving me a choice, drug rehab or prison, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in justice court, a lot of times it'll be, negotiated ahead of time, but as you mentioned, a judge at sentencing does have the ultimate decision to make, and I think a judge can also advise the parties. Something that you can think about when negotiating the cases is try to get some drug rehabilitation going, especially for some of the habitual offenders that are in and out for drug offenses. That I think is something that we can utilize a lot more.
Look, you've campaigned probably your entire life on behalf of your mother. Now you're doing it for yourself. What have you learned over the last several months of community activism in this campaign?
So I loved going to the events with my mom, and she just finished up her time serving in Congress about 10 years ago, so I was 30. So she was in Congress from when I was 16 to 30 years old, and I got a chance to go to a lot of events. I got a chance to go to Washington and go to a lot of events in Washington, D.C. as well, and they were wonderful, and they were very rewarding. But I've learned so much more about this community just in the last year. Just the amount of organizations, the amount of community involvement, just how many wonderful organizations are out there, and who's important and what their passion is. And that's really one of the things that I've enjoyed running for office. Probably that's the thing I'm going to take more than anything, is that I'm now in a much better position to speak about the community, and that's been a very, rewarding experience about this.
And one of those great organizations is Nevada Conservation League, which really does something with our environment, our water, etc. But hey, let me remind you, Max Berkley, November the 8th, right? Justice of the Peace. Get out there and vote, people.
There are more and more trucks on the road, and there are so many more accidents. If you or your loved ones have been injured in a truck accident, you need to call me.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome back. With me now is Angelyn Tabalba and Justin Watkins from the Nevada Conservation League. What exactly is the Nevada Conservation League?
Yeah, well, Ed, thanks for having us. The Nevada Conservation League is the political voice of Nevada's conservation community. And we really work to work with community members, elected officials, partner organizations, everybody who has a stake and who are passionate about environmental issues and better protecting that for the future of Nevada.
It seems like, look, the number one issue in the news right now is water. Water, water, water. You know, where are we going to have, where are we getting it from in the future? How do we protect it? You know, what can we really do about the amount of water here in Nevada?
Yeah, well, I think water is a really big concern that we have now, especially with a recent announcement from the Department of Interior yesterday about some of these cuts. And some of those major cuts are going to be from Nevada and from Arizona. Now, fortunately, we have great leaders. We have the Southern Nevada Water Authority, who has been working to conserve our water through several ways. Some of those water conservation strategies being seasonal watering of our lawns, and when we can't use those waters, or last legislative session we passed a non-functional turf bill so that folks can get rebates on switching out real grass for turf, and that way we can conserve water that way as well, and going after those water wasters as well. So we have been leading in the ways that we conserve water, and actually the Nevada Conservation League, we're going to be speaking with the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and the general public is definitely invited on August 23rd just to talk a little bit more about water management in Nevada. Yeah,
and those little things, because I did that at our house, where we converted from grass to turf, and I was surprised how big a check I did get from the water company. It was nice, and because it's not cheap to change into the turf, but it's a lot easier to maintain. I'll tell you, it always looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Nevada's a leader in water conservation all along the Colorado River basin. We're a lower basin state. We have to reduce, according to the federal order now, by 8% use. But we, in the last 20 years, have grown in population by over 30%. And with that growth, we've actually used more than 25% less water than we did before we had that growth. It's people taking out their lawns. It is
golf courses, I guess.
Elected officials making it a priority. Golf courses is a good use, but now you've seen that in local code, you can't build a swimming pool bigger than 20 by 30. We're way ahead of the curve on this stuff. So while we've been ordered by the federal government to reduce our use by 8%, we're well below our allotment now, and it won't really affect where we're at here locally.
Any chance that the monsoons will help?
As long as that translates into the winter and we get snowpack, right? I mean, I think we've all heard Lake Mead's gone up by 18 inches in the last couple of weeks, and I grew up here, and it's a thrill to be on your show because I grew up watching this show. And it used to be that those monsoons like we've had this year were pretty regular every single summer with the rainfall, and we haven't seen that.
You remember the Charleston overpass?
Oh,
it was like flooded up to the top. You drive, you're an attorney, you were downtown all the time. The water would be up to the bridge, where the trains go. Right?
Well, I grew up out in the Northwest, out where where Gilcrease Ranch is, Tully Springs, Lloyd Lamb State Park, and I remember during the summer monsoons, Grand Teton, the road Grand Teton, was a natural wash, and we used to We used to play in the flash flood, which I don't recommend, but we used to play in those waters. And over the last 10 years, you don't see the actual rainfall in the summer monsoons like we used to, but that's not what builds the lake. The upper basin states and the snowpack is what we need. And hopefully it translates this sort of wet summer into a really wet winter where we get some snowpack.
We need it. You've been working hard, Angelyn, and you got a lot of successes lately. I know that I was speaking with Congresswoman Titus regarding our electric buses and the RTC. Right, we got a couple now, and they're all going to be electric eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Washington did a really great job in reaching, I think, all either hybrid or all electric buses, and they reached that goal pretty fast as well. And so we're excited for some of those federal investments that Congresswoman Titus, Horsford, and Lee voted to pass in the Inflation Reduction Act.
And also, Nevada Conservation League was a critical component on the 2019 legislative session in the state to ensure that the school buses that are used in the state are all switched to electric as they run out their lifespan. And that's important from a couple different reasons, not just air pollution, but where those bus depots were located were in underserved communities where we were seeing a spike in asthma amongst kids. And so it is important that from both a health standpoint and an air quality standpoint that we were able to advocate for that change, and that change is coming.
Thank you, because none of us like being stuck behind a bus.
That's correct.
It's not pleasant. Recently, Congress passed a bill which allocated the most amount of money ever for climate-related issues. Some of those things provide for charging stations, and you were telling me before the show that we're pretty well off with the amount of charging stations that we have, and we've got a lot more planned.
Yeah, so I mean, we are leaders in the nation in water conservation, as we talked about, and I don't think there's any reason that we shouldn't be leaders in the nation on sustainability issues, water conservation, and climate-related environmental issues. And one of the things that I really pride ourselves on in this organization is that we are a policy organization that's driven by the science, not by the politics. So not only do we support sustainable living, environmental issues, but we support the protection of our public lands, recreational use, outdoorsmen and women in the state of Nevada, really heritage-based things in the state of Nevada. And I think that when we look at that energy highway throughout rural Nevada, it exists here. I mean, there's charging stations in towns that most Southern Nevadans have never heard of. And that was a vision in the 2017 session, along with Governor Sandoval. We're a bipartisan organization, and that's why we thrived in 2017, where there was a Democrat-led legislature and a Republican in the executive, and we were I think the independent voice in ensuring some of these things got passed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like most people are in favor of cleaning up and the environment, keeping climate, under control if we can. But you hear, there's some small percentage of people that are always, talking about the negative. And one of the things that I hear is like solar, for instance. Some people have a criticism that it doesn't really save in energy. Is that true?
No.
It doesn't sound reasonable to me.
Right. And I mean, if you're going to go into the technicality of solar and net metering and how that partnership works with NV Energy, it is true that unless you have a home battery that you're not really adding to the grid, right? You're getting credits for that. Mm-hmm. You're not using that power, but the instantaneous use isn't that way. Now, as we develop these clean energy solutions and we find not only just batteries that are used within the home to store the energy as it comes in, but actually like community batteries that they're working on and worldwide. And I think that you'll start to see NV Energy utilized within neighborhoods here in the future. Then absolutely we can take that solar energy, store it, and use it as needed, rather than getting sort of what I'll say sometimes can be fictitious credits towards your bill that aren't actually adding power to the grid.
Yeah, and I want to say beyond just the individual use, when we talk about solar, Nevada's home to one of the best solar industries in the nation. So beyond that just being good for individual use and saving you money on your home, this is providing good jobs for us. This is providing revenue to our state. And it's really just an example of how Nevada's been leading the way on clean energy. And we get more than 300 sunny days a year, so we might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, now just throw in on that too. We just recently approved Project Gemini in the state of Nevada. It'll be the largest solar field in the world ever created.
What is that solar thing on the 15 as soon as you cross over the border into California?
Yeah, so I mean that's a sort of advanced technology, and from an environmental standpoint, there is a balance there as to whether or not the benefits exceed the cost there. But the idea behind that is that no matter where the sun is in the sky, right, that we have these mirrors that point
they move,
it up.
Right?
Yep, they move and oscillate with the sun and point towards those towers that are solar panels, and it's magnifying the sun's effect. Now, that does have an effect on the wildlife around there, birds specifically, and so there is a balance there, and I'm not aware of any other well, that project's actually in California. It's over the border. Right. But I'm not aware of any Nevada projects that have that same design. Mostly we're trying to find that balance between environmental impact and environmental benefit.
And what about wind?
Well, there are lots of wind farms. If you work your way up into northeast Nevada, up in the Antelope Valley, up around Ely, there's lots of wind farms up there. But frankly, from a financial standpoint, from a job standpoint, from an economic impact standpoint, Nevada is uniquely placed for, I think, two different industries of renewable energy. Solar, which we know about, and geothermal, which is used a ton up in the north for mining operations, and there's no reason that can't translate into residential and commercial use.
Angelyn, how can people help? You're a nonpartisan group, as Justin was saying. Is committed to providing safe, clean environment for us all? Yeah. I know you have a dinner coming up sometime later this year?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. So you can get involved just by coming to our Home Means Nevada dinner. It's our annual dinner that we put on where we celebrate the environmental progress and the wins that we've made as an organization when we look back on the year. But we also celebrate leaders in our movement, the partners that we've worked with who have sort of blazed the trail or paved the way and allowed us to build on our success because of their leadership. So it's happening on Thursday, September 29th at 6 p.m. at the Springs Preserve, and we'd love if everybody could join us. So all of the benefits go to our organization to help us really just continue to power and advocate for a better environment for us all.
And you also work, I assume, on all the new bicycle paths that we have?
Well, so that's luckily we have a
wonderful
champion for bicyclists at the county commission level, and Justin Jones. I mean, he has made it his mission to ensure that there are as many bike paths as possible. Right. And so most of our advocacy work is in the state, but we also, sustainable living is the future of what we need to advocate for. And so we are getting more involved in local politics, city and county.
And then we have a story, and we just have a minute or two left, but story last week in the newspaper about self-driving vehicles, and Uber is testing all around Nevada with Las Vegas anyway, self-driving vehicles. I assume that's a positive thing.
Well, I mean, there's always cost and benefits.
Take off your lawyer hat.
Yeah, well, my only concern, yes, absolutely, there's going to be fewer accidents. There's going to be, and if all these self-driving vehicles are all electric, right, we're moving towards an electrification of our automobile vehicle nation, and that's one of the most important things we could do for our climate. And so, yeah, I can only see positives there. There are, of course, some risks.
Thank you so much, Justin, Angelyn. September, what was the date again?
29th.
29th at the Springs Preserve. You can go online, just Google Nevada Conservation League. You'll find the information.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
There are so many beautiful places to ride a bike in Vegas. The Strip, the mountains, desert. An accident can happen at any time. Trust me, I know. I've been in one.
Enough said. Call Ed.
In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk. They hear you.
There are unlimited ways to get hurt, and they usually involve wheels, whether it's 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 8 wheels, 18 wheels, and sometimes even 1 wheel. If you've been hurt, call me now.